this is Alyssa of The Life of an Aspie, and I'm driving. My hand is huge. I wish I had a better angle, but today I want to talk about basically how I used to be as a kid versus how I am now. Because I noticed, like, a lot of people on the spectrum and a lot of people in general, like, they'll still have traits that they sort of had when they were a kid, but a lot of things like you grow out of or mature out of, or certain things about you might change, and that seems to, depending on I guess how well you've adapted to society, and depending on like how your behaviors are as a kid, like how, I guess, inappropriate they are. Like, for someone on the spectrum, those changes can seem like much, much greater, I think, because there is a lot of pressure for us to blend in with society. And when you think about it, even people who are not on the spectrum, like kids who aren't on the spectrum, they still, do and can behave in ways that are socially inappropriate because they don't instinctively know what those things are. Now, if you're neurotypical, chances are you'll pick up on it a little bit quicker, but in general, I think most kids still need to be taught, like, what's the proper way to act. I know when I was a kid, I guess the best way to describe me is I was pretty, I was like a mixture of hyperactive and could be aggressive at times. And I always had to have things a certain way. I always got to have my way. I still have that part. I still got to have things my way the majority of the time. I definitely have, adapted to other people a little bit more easily. Oh, I just missed a road. Dang it, I'm doing Uber Eats deliveries right now, and sometimes my GPS is very confusing. But yeah, I definitely, I think I was a moody kid. I got upset really easily. And part of that was less sensory stuff for sure. Being overwhelmed by too much noise or too much going on in general. My mom told me I used to scream a lot as a baby, and I would complain a lot about things being too hot or too cold or itchy. Clothes were itchy on me, especially if they were dress clothes. There was this dress that I remember that was a complete nightmare to wear. I could not focus on anything else except for how itchy that dress was, and I don't even remember what event I had to wear it for. That's how bad it probably was. All I remembered was that dress was freaking itchy. Also, certain things like being hungry or being tired, or generally, the needs that needed to be met, if they were not met, I would be more likely to go into sensory overload. So, and I knew this. So, and also the sensations themselves of being hungry or tired and stuff. I know some people on the spectrum don't actually notice when they're, hungry or tired or thirsty or something. But I always have been hypersensitive to that. It was extremely bothersome being hungry. I hated that. So I'd say oh, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm thirsty and stuff. But it would always come out as really whiny, and so I was corrected a lot. So also about the aggression, more of that came about, actually, no, even when I wasn't in, I was going to say more of that came about when I was going to public school, but I did have incidences where, when I was homeschooled, where I would be aggressive. Namely, one of them, I remember one thing I forgot to mention. People are another big thing that really messed up my mood and confused the heck out of me and overwhelmed me. So, thought I should mention that for this next scenario here, because I remember this one time when I was riding my bike, and I had a pink bike. It was like so cute, and it had like it said on the handlebar, like it had this little sleeve that was over the handlebars, and it said glitter on it, and in the handles had streamers hanging from them. It was just a very pretty bike, a very girly bike for sure. And I wasn't big into pink, but I liked the bike. And I remember I was on the bike while trying to walk my dog, and I had a different dog before I had Sammy. I had a little white, it's like a white and gray cockapoo named Dusty, and I was walking him, and well, it was weird. I was like on the bike while trying to walk the dog. Like I wasn't really riding the bike. I was kind of just sitting on the bike and pushing myself along while walking the dog because I wanted to try to multitask or something. And then these two boys come walking past me, and they were giggling about something. And it could have been about anything, but I thought they were probably laughing at me or like making fun of me or something. I could hardly ever tell if someone was making fun of me or not. That's why I kind of automatically assumed that. And so I stopped my bike. I was ticked off at these kids. So I dropped my dog's leash, and I said, "Sick 'em." And the dog like went after the kids because Dusty was kind of like, I guess, not really good with people. So that didn't go very well. I got in huge trouble for that. But yeah, that's kind of what I mean, I guess, by aggressive. It's like, it's like you make fun of me, you mess with me, I get annoyed at you. And unfortunately, I think because I was corrected when I did something like that, because that's a bad thing to do. Like, you shouldn't, like, if you're mad at someone, you don't sick your dog on them. It's like not appropriate and not ethical. So I was definitely corrected, but I feel like I didn't really know how else to like release anger or stand up for myself. So I end up, I think, over the years, kind of just said, well, I can't really like, stand up for myself, so I'll just take whatever comes, and that's like the opposite. That's not a good attitude to have. So like, I would take abuse and things like that because I thought, if I act in anger, that's bad. Nobody likes that. But other ways that I was aggressive was, I know a couple times, actually twice, I was so overwhelmed from going to school. Like, I was so tired when I got back. I'd be really grouchy, and like, I remember I kicked a hole in the wall because I was so overwhelmed, and my parents like got really mad, and well, they patched up that part of the wall though, and later, not the same day, but like another day, I was mad again and kicked that same spot in that wall, even though it was already patched up. I guess maybe in my brain there was still some kind of irrational thinking there, thinking, well, that part of the wall is already destroyed, right? So kicking it again, that'd be better than making a new hole, I guess. But I also got like I got this tiny little punching bag. This is one thing that my parents did to help me like release some of my anger, because it's like a lot of pent up energy that I need to let out. They got me this little punching bag. It was really lightweight, so like, if I punch it, it flies across the room. But it was something. And we tied it up in the garage, and I would go out and into the garage, and I would punch that thing, and it would swing across the garage like it was tied to the ceiling. So like swing to the other side of the garage, swing back, and I'd punch it again, and that helped me get rid of some of that energy. And these days exercise helps a lot with that for sure. So in terms of how I am these days, I still feel like I have some form of pent up aggression, I guess. Like, it can come out as like intensity, like kind of like being emotionally intense, like specifically about certain things. Like there's certain topics, like trigger topics, I guess, that I would like be a little more like intense about. Like if I feel very strongly about it, it's like that's one reason why I like. I think that's actually one reason why I like would often want to speak out about like injustices, done to people on the spectrum and stuff. It's like I need to direct that energy somewhere, and that kind of helps. And it helps. Blogging helps too. I know a lot of my blog posts, I wish I could post more positive stuff, but it ends up coming out pretty negative, I think, because I like do have a lot of pent up energy, and I'm putting so much effort forward to like to be this outwardly pleasant, positive person, which I probably come across as in my documentary, or like people who have met me in person. They think I'm a very pleasant person, and that's true. But like, there's a side of me that you might not like as much. That's kind of like intense and very emotionally intense in different ways. I'm getting a little annoyed at the lighting here. Okay, there we go. That's better. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. I can't tell. But yeah, how I am now, like I said, some of my pent-up aggression would show up as more just being emotionally intense for some things. And honestly, like what helps me with that is definitely exercise is a huge thing. I get really, really agitated if I haven't been exercising. So, as you might imagine, this job that I'm doing for Uber Eats, sorry about the bouncing. This is a rough road, and this thing doesn't hold it very still. Yeah, so like this is a very sedentary job. So I get really agitated and like I have to exercise. I absolutely have to exercise. I like that this job is pretty easy for me. It's just I need to get up and move around to make up for the time that I spend sitting. And what else helps me? Melting down completely. Believe it or not. They say like, oh, you shouldn't melt down or whatever, and you don't want your kids having these meltdowns all in public and stuff, and you should be discerning about when and where you have meltdowns. But honestly, one of my biggest reasons for wanting to live alone is that I feel like I'd be more free to have legit meltdowns, because they are kind of an emotional release of sorts. And it's not that like my family wouldn't, want like me melting down. It's sort of like I've trained myself not to, because I don't want to be inconsiderate of other people. Like I have been around people melting down before, like whether they're on the spectrum or not, and it's a hard thing to witness. It's a hard thing to be around. I don't want to be the person causing that. It would be better if I like lived alone, so I can just deal with that by myself and not feel like I'm being judged. I don't like that sense that someone can hear me or see what I'm doing when I'm like that. I feel like if I could melt down more, I would be able to face the world with a whole lot more energy than I do these days. I feel very kind of suppressed lately, honestly. So, if I were to give any advice for people on the spectrum who deal with like anger issues or aggression, or like parents of people on the spectrum who, they're dealing with some of their anger issues, try not to view the anger or the aggression or any of that as necessarily this bad, evil thing we need to get rid of, or as like, this behavior we have to stop. Because it's easier, I think it makes more sense to think of it like it's the symptom of something that's off, that's like something that's agitating this person, and that's just their response to it. Obviously you shouldn't let someone like, be aggressive or angry in a way that's going to like harm other people or harm themselves, for sure. Like that is definitely something you need to like work on. Like a lot of people don't really like to be around someone who's very angry or aggressive. So it's like that is something to work on. It's just easier to view it as, I think, a symptom. Something, it's like just, have some compassion for the person who's aggressive and, see what could be causing it. I know it can be kind of scary, but like there are things that can definitely help. For me, like I said, exercise is a big one. If you're sedentary, if you're sitting around too much, you're holding in all that energy, you're not really getting it out. There are some ways you can get rid of some of the energy if you are sedentary, like playing video games, for instance. I honestly have no problem with violent video games. Probably depends on the person who's playing them, but in most cases, something I've noticed is a lot of guys, men or even women who like to play violent video games. One benefit for them for doing that is they're releasing some pent-up energy, some pent-up aggression in a healthy way that's not going to release it upon the whole world, because you don't want that. It's like, would you rather have your child or yourself play a violent video game or go and actually harm some people and throw things at them and beat them up and stuff? Pretty sure you'd go with video games then. Maybe. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you choose. I've just made an assumption there. Oh, I got another delivery. Woohoo! Like that beepy sound. Beepy sound means more money. So yeah, anyway, try to find an outlet. Exercise is great. If you find that you're indoors a lot, this is one of my biggest problems, especially in the winter. If I'm indoors a lot, and let's say I don't have exercise equipment, if I have stairs, I will go run up and down the stairs. If I don't have stairs, I will, I remember when I was being pretty much confined to a dorm room at college, I would run back and forth in the room. I would run in place. I would do jumping jacks. I would, even if you don't want to do anything specifically exercisey or anything that feels like it should be work or a workout, try something like dancing or something that gets your body moving. I think that's why a lot of autistic people stim. It is a release of energy. So, stim away any chance you get. Depending on your setting, most people probably are not going to care as long as your stims are even if I'm doing this in public or if I'm rocking back and forth, my thought is especially if I'm around, strangers, I don't know, on the bus or just out in public, I think these people aren't going to see me again. I don't need to feel embarrassed about this. It's a natural thing. If anyone says something, again, I'm not going to see them ever again. They don't know me. So yeah, just let yourself be you in the best way that you can and try to find ways to make any of your pent-up emotions, turn it into something. Turn it into working out, turn it into art, turn it into playing video games, or putting your passion into anything. But yeah, that's all I got. See you guys.